Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what questions we can dredge up from this wretched hive of scum and villainy. So this isn't a question, but please stop swapping roles without saying anything. If you're going to make drastic swaps, at least tell your team you're going to do so. The issue there is that's all well and good, but typically if someone's making a drastic role switch, it's because the person is upset. It is almost always tank or healer is mad, and so they're going to change to a DPS, because the DPS are not doing anything when the issue is usually actually that the Reinhardt just keeps charging in and dying. And then he's like, well, I've got gold damage. Y'all are scrubs. Yeah, it's because you just pinned them and dived in and, like, smacked a few people before you died. Yeah, you did a lot of damage, but your team was getting killed behind you, and you didn't do anything to help with that. It upsets me greatly. Anyway, what else we got? I've been seeing Anna chosen a ton lately, and I'm not sure which support to pair up with her. Anna has been a lot more popular lately, which is nice. I think Anna's actually pretty good right now, and she's about to get buffed, so that's cool. And the answer is Zenyatta, because Zenyatta's still really fucking strong. Or Bridget, so that you can stop the Anna from being killed by the divers. Basically, is about what it goes to. If the Anna's bad, just pick another main healer, because she ain't gonna be healing anybody if she's bad, basically. 2 accounts, different results. So a couple of seasons ago, I tried to make a non-meta hero work, and fell below SR 1000. Not knowing this would impact my next season, I was shocked when I was placed low after placements next season. Later on, I made a second account, and I'm comfortably in gold as a flex tank. My question is, how do I get my main account out of the hole? After a string of bad luck, I am now unable to get it out of the 800s SR. I'd almost rather play this account rather than my gold account, as I feel embarrassed with it sitting so low. But I cannot figure out how the low bronze meta... So, basically, it's just like pick heroes that can carry and punish other people's mistakes. Between constant criticize DPS comps, team infighting, and other things, I am losing more than I win. Is there any secret to fixing this mess? Just pick heroes that are really good at punishing people in low SR for their dumb mistakes. Winston, they won't know what to do to counter you. You'll just jump on them and kill them. Bridget, people make all kinds of dumbass mistakes in low SR. You can punish them and just beat them all to death, because there's going to be like all 6 of them are just going to be spread out doing their own thing. You can just pick Bridget and beat them all to death and punish them for doing stupid shit. Cancel any ultimates, all that business. Who else is really good? Soldier's really good, because he's like the most independent DPS in the game, can heal himself. It's very hard to kill. Even if he gets dove, he can usually just fight the diver off unless they're really competent, which they won't be in bronze. Yeah, like, for each role, it's like DPS, Soldier, Tank, Winston, and Bridget for support. They're just all really easy to play, they're all pretty independent, and they can all punish people's stupid mistakes, basically, which there will be a lot of in bronze. Do not, if you're in, like, silver, bronze, do not pick Mercy. Do not pick Reinhardt, if you can at all avoid it, because these heroes are very dependent on their teammates actually doing something. Don't pick Anna, because you just won't have an ultimate, basically, most of the time. Just don't pick heroes that are dependent on other people having a baseline level of competency, like Mercy. Mercy has very little actual, like, impact herself on the game. She is, almost exclusively interacts with the game by assisting other people. So if the other people are bad, you will not get anywhere as Mercy. A startlingly common issue, like, I'm in bronze and silver, Mercy main, how do I get out of bronze and silver? Just don't play Mercy until you're a little bit higher. You don't even need to be good at the other heroes, because you only need to know basically how they work, and that'll be fine. Who counters McCree, and who is he strong against? He is strong against Pharah and the flankers, because he has hard crowd control. Not so good against Reaper if the Reaper's competent, because you just flick Wraith Form, dodge the flashbang, and then you kill Reaper. Then you kill McCree, rather. Who else is he really good against? That's basically, like, he's basically picked because he's good against Pharah and the flankers. He's better at countering Pharah than Soldier is, more often than not, because McCree can actually, like, kill the Pharah. Soldier doesn't typically do that unless the Pharah is out of position. As for who counters him, it's basically, like, divers. Once he starts getting dove, like, you can flashbang and roll away, but then that's kind of it after that point. It doesn't exactly put a lot of distance between you and the person. And if you're playing D.Va, you can just eat the flashbang, keep going. He ain't gonna kill a Winston as long as you don't jump on him when he's next to, like, 3 other people. So it's divers that counter him. Snipers also counter him because they can just fight him from outside of his range, and there's not much you can do about it because he is the most affected by fall-off damage out of all the hit-scan heroes. But he is really good against Pharah and the flankers. Hard crowd control is typically good against the flankers. Changing up the comp is not the solution to every problem. This is correct information. The thing that, like, really upsets me more than, like, that is you can always tell who's having a really bad game because you just see them switch heroes, like, every single time they die, which more often than not is actually making the problem worse because if they just switch every time they die, or, like, every other time they die, then they never actually end up building up any ultimates, and Overwatch is pretty based around ultimates, so I hate when I see people just changing constantly. Like, the solution is usually pretty straightforward. Like, there are not that many drastic hero pick decisions to make in this game. And the ones that there are pretty simple to make. The issue is usually just that you are playing in the wrong way. But you have just decided the issue must be who you are playing or who your teammates are playing. The answer is actually usually just you're playing the hero / the comp wrong for the situation. But, you know, that would take a little bit too much introspection, so it's easier to just blame it on the hero pick or the team comp. Advice for stopping a skid. Basically, like, look, that sucks. Losing streaks happen. They have variable lengths. The best you can do is just kind of, like, stick it out. Like, if it's drastically out of place, like over the last 2 weeks I've dropped over 600 SR, eventually it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you come into a game expecting to lose because you have lost that many times, so you just expect it to keep on going. And that the issue is just once you actually do win a couple times, it usually stops, because at that point you've mentally broken out of the cycle. Basically, like, you know, the losing streak, I'm pretty sure there's another question somewhere else along today about losing streaks. The unfortunate answer is it sucks. You kind of just have to deal with it, and eventually it'll stop happening. Doesn't feel good. Yeah, unfortunately it just kind of happens. Winning streaks also happen, it's just, we don't remember those as clearly, because the way our stupid monkey brains are, it's just like, I remember the negative experiences much more than the positive experiences. You could just, you know, toxicity is just kind of an issue. If you really want to avoid toxicity, the best thing you can probably do is just, like, use looking for group. But if you're a dedicated solo, duo, what have you, then you're kind of just gonna have to deal with it. Toxicity just kind of happens. What to do against Sombra as Reinhardt. So, is there any good advice to preventing getting hacked, or what to do if I get hacked? If I get it that Sombra is among the least picked heroes, and buffs are needed to get her to a viable pick. I still think she's fine, but, you know, Sombra at this point, like, I also think Symmetra is fine. The problem is, at this point, is that some heroes just have such a stigma attached to them that it's going to be extremely hard to get that stigma off of them. Like when Torbjorn gets reworked, he's probably going to be fine, but Torbjorn has easily the worst stigma of any hero in the game attached to him. So even if he's, like, fine or good, he's still going to have the same issue where people will throw for you just because you've picked the hero. Sombra's the same way. I've said Sombra's fine for ages, but no, she just has this really bad stigma attached to her at this point. Symmetra also has it. Symmetra's fine to good based on some matchups and maps. But no, unfortunately, at this point she's 2 years deep into having one of the worst heroes in the game tags attached to her. So that's the real issue there. Sombra also has that at this point. And she's been in the game for a really long time, so it's going to be hard to get that one off her. So anyway, but the Reinhardt thing. So if you get hacked, you're fucked. Like, just try and get out of the way and hope you weren't in a position where you're just totally fucked if you get hacked. Try to avoid such positions like being out in the open, basically, or like right next to the enemy team if you know there's a Sombra somewhere around, but you're not sure where she is. The best advice to preventing getting hacked is basically, you gotta have good reaction time. You gotta just be able to spin around and block line of sight with your shield as soon as she starts hacking you. And then, you know, that opens you up to other issues as well, like if the other Reinhardt Earth Shatters you when you flick over to do that, but unfortunately, there isn't really a lot you can do as Reinhardt versus Sombra. The Sombra has to fuck up for you to do something to her as Reinhardt. So the best you can do is just try and be aware of where she is, try and keep track of her to the best of your ability, and just try to block line of sight when you shield as soon as she tries to hack you. But, like, she counters you. Like, there's really not a lot Reinhardt can do versus Sombra. If the Sombra is really good and you're playing Reinhardt, you're gonna get fucked, and there's not a lot you can do about it. Sombra, in general, counters basically all of the tanks, because they're all pretty cooldown and ability-based, and ultimate-based as well, so you're kind of just gonna be in for a bad time. If the Sombra is really good, there's not a lot you can do as Reinhardt. Those are basically your only options, and you just hope that your the teammates that are more capable of dealing with Sombra do so, basically. How to choose whether to speed boost or to heal, and who to attack as Lucio. I mean, the reason Lucio is strong is because of his speed boost. It's the reason to pick Lucio. So you really just want to be in the speed boost as much as possible. The time to heal is like when your team is taking a poke, like if you're in like the poking and prodding phase of the game, you're probably not going to be doing much moving around, so you can just kind of stay in the healing aura for longer. Because, well, if you're poking and prodding, you're probably not repositioning very drastically at that point in time. I mean, there's obvious ones, like if somebody's using an ultimate, you start speed boosting immediately, regardless of which team they're on, basically. To avoid, if they try to engage really hard on you, you can use the speed boost to disengage. When you want to engage, you use the speed boost, blah, blah, blah. But, like, basically the reason you pick Lucio is because of the speed boost. So you really want to just be in the speed boost as much as physically possible. And you only really change over to the healing when, like, you're in the middle of the fight. At which point, basically, like, when you're brawling it out, you don't really need to move around quickly that much anymore, so healing becomes more important. When you're poking and prodding, healing becomes more important. But basically, at all other times, you want to be in the speed boost. The speed boost is why Lucio is good, so it's really, you just want to be in it as much as physically possible. As for who to attack, I mean, you'll never really go wrong by just shooting at the tanks, because they're easy to hit and it'll help you build up ult charge. Sound Barrier is a pretty good ultimate, so you'll never really go wrong by shooting at somebody who's just easy to hit. Otherwise, like, if there isn't a clear target, just shoot at whoever everybody else seems to be shooting at. If you're, like, trying to dive on someone as Lucio, which sometimes you're doing, then, you know, you want to go for the squishy targets first, like, you know, you jump on the Mercy, start bullying her around before you jump on, like, the Bridget, you know, that kind of thing, which is fairly obvious. If you're not sure who to go for, though, just go for whoever everyone else is shooting at, and, try to farm ult off of big boys. Lucio isn't, like, you're not gonna do a whole lot during the poking and prodding phase. I didn't mean to actually click on it. You just kind of, like, spam at whoever, because you're trying to build up some ult charge. And if you're in the middle of the fight, just try and get the squishy targets, or try to assist somebody else who seems to have a good chance of killing somebody. My aim in game has gotten significantly worse recently. That happens sometimes. Diva tips for countering 2 sniper comps. Recently, I've seen a lot less D.Va in comp and has to switch off recently, but a lot of people don't know is D.Va heavily counters the combo. Many D.Vas try to eat the grav. Now, this is a good way of doing it, but if the D.Va is smart, if the Zarya is smart, wait for the cooldown between DM flashes. A much better way of doing this is hiding when you know that they're going, and then eating the dragon. Yeah. Or you can even eat the dragon if you're inside the graviton half the time, because the Hanzo honestly doesn't tend to be that far away. Yeah. D.Va is really good against the combo. It's, I mean, you know, that's the way it is, because like, it's really heavily based around Graviton Dragon Strike, so having the ability to eat either ultimate is really good. Eating the Graviton is harder than eating the Dragon Strike, just in general, because you have to anticipate the Zarya. Because there is or you can try and catch it out of the air, but you gotta have some good reactions for that one. Eating the dragon's a lot easier. D.Va is really good, though, it's true. The Mercy, Hog, D.Va, Orisa, 2 DPS comps. In Overwatch League, the teams often ran a single healer, triple tank, strat, and Dunkertown. Why? Like, what are the advantages of that comp? Don't you need more heals than a single Mercy the more tanks you run? And what does it counter? What counters it? I do not watch enough of the Overwatch League to comment. Somebody else probably knows better than me. I'm sure there is a very specific reason for it, but I don't know what it is, because I don't watch the Overwatch League, really. Turn VSync off. It's a dirty resource hog. You'll get some screen tearing when you turn it off, but honestly, VSync is just like a dirty resource hog for not much in the way of overall improvement. Aim settings on console, pick whatever you like. If it doesn't feel good, adjust accordingly. Once it feels good, stick with it. Changing it back and forth constantly often makes it worse. What do I do as Genji when I am tasked with facing Moira? Okay, so, as someone who plays Moira, if you let the fight drag on versus the Moira, you will lose to the Moira. Because she doesn't kill you quickly, but she will, over time, just beat you. So, the way I've almost always died to Genji is the Genji has managed to sneak up on me and, like, gotten a shot in early. Or they've just really decisively just, like, come up to me and just been like, dead. Like, basically, you're looking to end it as soon as you possibly can, because the longer the fight goes on, the more likely Moira is to win. The advantage Genji has is that he can kill Moira a lot faster than Moira can kill Genji. Don't fight the Moira in a confined location, because if you're trying to fight Moira in a little room, she's just going to bounce an orb around, and there's not going to be much you can do about it other than deflect it. Do try and deflect Moira's orb, if at all possible. Even if it's the healing orb, you can still deflect the healing orb, and then it's your healing orb, which always feels really bad. So try and deflect the orb. Just like, if you aren't sure if you can kill her quickly, just like poke around until you can build up your ult, and then, you know, dash up to her, Dragon Blade, she'll fade, follow her, and then kill her. Or follow her with the reset off the dash from drawing the blade and then kill her. But yeah, basically the longer the fight goes on, the more likely Moira is to win, so don't let it go on for too long. Try and sneak up on her, just like get right up on her and like chink chink, dead. Don't, the issue is almost always the Genji tries to play too tentatively, or they psych themselves out. Like, the whole way you win is you kill that Moira fast. Same is true of Tracer as well. Not that uncommon to see the question as Tracer. It's easier to do as Tracer, just because she has a slightly less precise weapon than Genji does. But again, this is the same concept. You just get right up on the Moira and just like try to fuck her as quickly as possible, basically. Because the longer it goes on, the more likely she is to win. Also, like, be aware she's going to have Fade. So if you're playing Genji, if you're going to dash up to her, remember that she will probably fade away from you afterwards. So try to get up on her without using your dash, and then you can follow her through the fade with the dash if you have to. Help with mistakes. I just got back into Overwatch and I need help. How can I know I am making mistakes if I still get the win? And whenever my team loses, how can I know that I am doing things right? I sincerely would like... I mean, it's not an easy question. The simplest thing is, like, when you lose, or, like, just look at every time you died and ask yourself how you could have avoided that from happening. Or anytime your team got wiped, ask if there was anything you could have done to prevent the reason your team got wiped. And if you still won, like, that's harder to do. Basically, you're just looking for opportunities that you didn't see at the time that you could have tried to capitalize on. And then the next time you're in a similar situation, you'll be more likely to see the opportunity that you could have taken advantage of. But if you lost, it's just the easiest thing to do is just go, why did I die? Why did my team die? What could I have done to prevent that, basically? And just kind of troubleshoot through the problem. 55 limb credit for 100 damaged fire strike. Why does it show 55 credit when... I don't know how the fucking fire thing works. Who cares? What separates a Plat Doomfist from a Master Doomfist? Like, I'm not that into Doomfist. The answer seems to just be that they fuck you really hard. Question regarding best picks for damage dealer in high-rank competitive solo queue. Hanzo, best DPS in the game currently. Var is always really good. Somewhat team-dependent. Genji's always really good, and Junkrat is pretty good. Depending on the map, Junkrat can be really fucking good also, so they're like always the best ones. Tracer's also usually really good, but you can get kind of fucked over if they pick things like Bridget. But Hanzo, Genji, Pharah, basically always the best ones. Well, Hanzo, not always, but presently is like the best hero in the game, so, you know, easy money. Been at high silver for the past few seasons I've played at. Now I am stuck at high bronze. Any tips for a tank healer main? Well, we talked about this earlier. Yeah, don't pick those two. Don't pick them. Pick Bridget. Bridget's really good. Don't pick Lucio. Pick Bridget. Lucio can be good, but like pick Bridget. Just so easy, and you'll punish people's dumbass mistakes. Lucio, somewhat team dependent, harder to actually punish people's mistakes, but it's really good at punishing people. Hog is also okay, but I would, like, Winston is probably better just because you'll make people panic, they won't know what to do. People are usually picking heroes that are, like, easily countered by, Winston, because people love to pick the snipers and the Genji, even though they're bad at them, and they get pretty countered by Winston. Or Diva, same thing. Don't pick those two, though. Like, if you're picking those two at all, there's the issue right there. Talked about that one earlier. Basically, like, people make a shit ton more mistakes. Just punish people's mistakes. Play more aggressively. Like, pick people who can play aggressively and play more aggressively and punish people's mistakes. Ultimately, that's what Overwatch is entirely about, is punishing other people's mistakes. So just, like, they're making more mistakes. Play more aggressively. Punish more mistakes. When to change team composition. Like, if you're talking drastic team composition switches, wait till between rounds to do that, because it's very hard to organize a full-on, like, composition switch mid-round. And people, like, mostly because, like, people end up dropping a lot of ult charge, or you'll end up with a really weird team comp while you're walking around waiting for people to drop their ults to change. So if you're talking like full-on team composition switches, wait till between rounds to do that. Doing it mid-round is very difficult to do. So like full-on team comp switches between rounds. If it's only one or two switches, if it's only one or two like changes, just try and arrange it so that like you both switch as quickly, or like 2 or 3 of you. Just try and arrange it that like you switch as closely to each other as possible. Because if you got one, like if one of you is changing off of a healer to a DPS, then that can really fuck you over if you don't switch relatively close to each other time-wise, because you might end up with only one healer or one tank. So, but if we're talking full, big changes, wait till between rounds. How to win when you have a 5 DPS on your team. Just pick Zen. I mean, I certainly understand the logic. Do you ever get rolled by more than 3 DPS team? Why would you need tanks or healers if the enemy team takes so much damage that they can't even show his face? It's true. So, I mean, what else can you do when you already have 5 DPS? Basically, you do just pick a healer and hope for it. Zenyatta, like, the thing is no one will be helping you if you're Zenyatta, so that can be an issue, but, like, basically the best you can do is pick a healer, yeah. Losing SR. Why do I win playing in low master but lose in mid diamond? I mean, there is a difference in the way people play, because at that point we're talking like a 200, 300 SR difference. That's quite a lot. When playing with team ratings, I mean, it's basically like, the thing is that you're playing support, which typically has less agency over the game, and you're playing with better people, so that probably has something to do with it. It's probably like every SR plays a little bit differently, so it is likely just that you're playing with better people and you haven't adjusted to playing with less good people, which is a skill in the game, actually. So a diamond player here, P current, oh no, what a drastic drop. I was gold only 2 seasons ago, but I decided to get good and worked on my aim, watched pro players, took up shot calling. After a month and after I reached diamond, I thought I was a good enough diamond player in the beginning. Since I wasn't losing a lot of games, I was doing Is there a possibility that I was boosted without ever grouping with anyone? It's extremely unlikely to be the case. Like, it is theoretically possible, but you would have to be extraordinarily lucky to get boosted up, like, that many categories in in 2 seasons. Like, you'd have to be very, very lucky. Not impossible, certainly, but it sounds like what actually happened was you just invested a lot of energy into getting good, and then you lost a few games and had this knee-jerk panic reaction. You're, like, losing a few games suddenly doesn't mean you were boosted. Like, it sounds like you probably just put a lot of effort in and boosted up, and now you're afraid because you're losing games. It's probably fine. Relax. You're probably fine. If you're, like, my opinion on it basically is, if you're worried about having been boosted at all, you probably weren't. Because the people who are worried about that kind of thing are usually the ones that care more about the game and put more effort into actually getting good. Also, people who are a higher SR are just naturally tend to be more critical of themselves. Like, it's not exactly an uncommon question. Is like, was I boosted at, like, Diamond Plus? Probably not. Like, if you got that high, you probably weren't boosted, because it takes some effort to get that high, usually. Obviously, because, like, a lot of people can't get up there at all. So the chances of you getting up there by accident is relatively slim. Well, where were we? Alright. Advice needed for new players embarking on the scary world of competitive play. Relax. You're probably fine. Is, like, really the only important advice. Just, like, relax. You're probably fine. It's not really any different to the other modes. It's just that you and hopefully your team are trying more actively to win than have fun. But it's not as scary as you think it is. It's just, there's this anxiety that you might have to get over. And, you know, I had to get over that at one point in time. Mine was more with League of Legends than Overwatch, which I played for many years. I had the ranked anxiety thing, and then eventually I was just, like, forced myself through it, and I was like, it's kind of actually not any different to playing the game regularly. It's just, we're trying a little bit harder, generally. Relax, you're probably fine. Like, do I even Doomfist? I love Doomfist. My aim is, well, not abysmal, not the best. I can play Widow. But since my aim is so unreliable, and I don't like to play Zarya the whole time, I like to play characters with good close-range abilities. However, if I am playing Doomfist well, the enemy will go Pharah and completely wreck me. Or they will choose Bridget, and I will never be able to do anything but feed. So how do I play into my counters? I've heard things like, if If you're good, counters don't matter too much, but at this point, I know it's bull. Yeah, it is. So how can I play Doomfist into heroes that will counter me? I don't know enough about Doomfist to say, really. I'm sure there are specific things for Doomfist playing against those counters. The thing is that there are some counters in the game that are just really hard counters. Like, there is not a lot you can do as Doomfist versus Pharah. I imagine it basically, the advice probably basically amounts to avoid the Pharah as much as possible and try to make plays around her instead. But, like, there are some counters in the game that are just, like, really hard counters that make it hard to do anything. And we all would like to live in this idyllic world where if we're really good at the hero, we can play against all of our counters. If the person playing the counter is, like, good, that probably won't work. It's possible, and some heroes allow for it more, like Winston, like Genji is countered by Winston, but Genji has a lot of ways to outplay Genji. So Genji has a lot of ways to outplay Winston. Winston does not have that many ways to outplay Genji. Like, I'm sure there are specific things for Doomfist versus, like, Pharah and Bridget, but I don't know what they are. But there are some counters that are, like, hard enough counters that there isn't really much you can do about it. Like Reaper versus Winston. The Reaper has to fuck up, basically, is the gist of it. If the Reaper doesn't fuck up, the Winston can't do much against the Reaper, so, the Weeper. So, I don't know. There's probably something, but I don't know. It might be one of those cases where there isn't really a lot you can do other than try to avoid the Pharah. Let's see. Tracer tips. So, try not to run out of blinks, but also try to never be sitting around at full blinks. When recall is on cooldown, play more passively until recall is up, because recall is how you get out of very bad situations, and if you don't have it, you can just suddenly die, and there isn't much you can do about it. If you can avoid using recall to heal, do. Try to blink back to a healer or a health kit instead, because again, when recall's on cooldown, we have to play more passively, so try to avoid having it on cooldown as much as possible. But, by the same token, if you're afraid you're going to die, just use recall. Don't worry about it. Don't be a greedy hoe. When in doubt, recall out. What else? So there's this kind of, there's this, like, thing with Tracer that's, like, a rhythm to playing her, where you spend roughly a second shooting and roughly a second reloading. The goal is to blink, shoot, and then blink while reloading, because you can't do anything while you're reloading anyway, so that's the best time to blink, because you're staying mobile and doing something during the period of downtime. And if you're reloading already, it gives you more time to adjust your aim when you're blinking. Because ideally when you're blinking, you've already adjusted your aim during or before the blink, because what usually happens is the person blinks, and then they adjust their aim after they arrive. Really, you want, when you blink, you want to just be snap over there to where your aim needs to be. So if you're just reloading while you're blinking, it gives you more time to adjust. Get used to just, like, pressing right into somebody when you're trying to stick them, because it's just a lot, like, Tracer has got the worst fucking throw in the world. Fucking Grandma Anna, old lady's got the sickest pitch on the planet, fucking just chucks it across the whole world. You could throw it from Germany and it'd end up in Volskaya. Whereas Tracer, sprightly, energetic girl, there's a weak underarm lob. Imagine if she could pitch like Anna. But the underarm, it's fucking trash. Try not to throw it long distance. Try to just, like, get used to, like, pushing right into somebody's face and just, like, push the pulse bomb right onto them. It's a lot easier than having to actually, like, throw it, because it's the worst throw in the world. Cheating or glitch S point. Was on the map blanking the name. Okay, great. It's the map with the theater to the right and the bus stop and the bus right outside the offense. Oh, so Kings Row. Symmetra was inside the bus, placing her turrets inside, making it to where you can't destroy them. Sometimes it seemed like you could hit through the windows, but others it couldn't. I have never experienced this. Anyone else? I mean, so there were a lot of places where Reaper could get into geometry. With his teleport, which they've progressively fixed. The best one I ever saw was the Reaper got inside of the payload on Gibraltar, and the defending team just couldn't stop him because he's just inside the payload, right? He could get in the boxes on Gibraltar as well. He could get outside of the spawns on all of the King of the Hill maps. I think he could do it on all of them. He must have been able to, because he could clip through the geometry on the plane, so there must have been a way to do it on all of them. So Symmetra also has a teleport, and it's different to Reaper's teleport. So I have no doubt there are ways that she can get into geometry that we have not previously known about because the teleporter did not function this way. So yeah, I don't doubt that that was possible. There's probably a few places like that where you can glitch into geometry. Yeah. Feels bad. Haven't played since Season 1. Questions. Used to be top 500 by climbing with... You don't need help. You'll probably... If you guys... you're probably gonna be fine. Has the yes, it's changed quite a bit, but those heroes are still all good. These two in particular are really good. They're definitely still solo climb heroes. Are there any heroes you'd recommend for me to broaden? Hanzo. And Zenyatta. Yeah. That's basically it. When is the next Overwatch sale? I don't know. How does Mercy's damage boost stack with McCree's High Noon? I mean, it does do more... Like, it makes it lock on faster. Well, it makes the damage tick up faster, I should say. Requiring less time to kill. But what if a Mercy damage boost for a few seconds, then switches to heal beam, then switches back to damage boost? I mean, from McCree's perspective, it should just look like it unlocks on a little bit, and then it would relock on a little bit. Because if you stay, like, it doesn't make it go up faster strictly, it's just starting him from a higher number. Because it's the damage he's gonna do is ticking up the whole time. Mercy isn't making it tick faster, she's just increasing the base number. So, like, from McCree's perspective, it should, like, loosen and then immediately lock back down again if it swinges back and forth. How would it work if Mercy were to rapidly flick between damage boost and heal beam on a McCree ulting? Would this help at all, or would it be useless? Well, depending on, like, the timing of the flick, it could end up being quite bad, because he might just suddenly... It could be locked on, and then unlock on if she switches to healing, like, right as he fires. Because it doesn't make it go up faster, so it would, in fact, be useless to do that. And sometimes actively detrimental. If you need the McCree to stay alive through Deadeye, then, you know, fair enough, but... That should be how it works, because, no, it definitely doesn't, like, make it go up faster. It should just be a flat well, I guess the way math works, it might make it tick up faster because of the percentage. Like, I think I might be overthinking it at this point. Don't do it. Don't flick it like that. Let's see. Think carefully about the timing of your flanks. Yes, wait till your team is there, basically. Call actions by their name, not button or key. This is what I've tried to do more recently. The thing is that some abilities don't have clear names, like Zarya's beam or the balls. It just always ends up coming out left click and right click. Just because saying the beam and the ball is a little bit more awkward. So that's 2 pages. We're at just under 40 minutes. We'll do one more, because we usually go for closer to an hour. When you're just a platinum player, how do you find teams to join? I mean, there's probably other platinum players or close to that want to improve as well. You might have to, like, straight up or down a little bit, but if you're looking for a consistent group, like, they're out there. It might just take you a little bit longer to find them. Trying to understand the aiming better, need some discussion. Look. I'm newest to Overwatch. I hit this shot, and we're going to find out what causes this and how I can minimize it so that my crosshair is more accurate to the shot I'm about to make. So there's probably latency, my ping... So... Alright, so... If you're playing a really precision-based hero, like Widowmaker or McCree, there can be a thing where you want your sensitivity to be smooth enough that you don't skip pixels on the screen, because that can make it seemingly inconsistent on how good your aim is. This is why lower sensitivities are generally better, because it's very hard for it to skip pixels if your sensitivity is very low. But like, you basically do just want to be able to adjust your cursor 1 pixel at a time, and that makes it... Like, basically that's better if your hero is particularly precision-based, like Widowmaker or McCree. But that's a very, like... fine and high-level thing at that point. Like, it's not something you're probably gonna ever notice until you put, like, a lot of time in on the hero. So it's not really something worth putting excessive amounts of worry into. But it, you know, your aim can end up feeling a little bit inconsistent if your sensitivity is too high for that reason. I think there are, like, apps and websites that can help check for that kind of thing. If the enemy focuses on me, I'm very likely to be eliminated. Yeah. I'm clicking on the wrong screen. I'm clicking on the fucking OBS window. God damn it. I've clicked on the wrong thing again. Oh, God. Oh, gee. Oh, God, what a disaster. We shouldn't have gone to the next page. Jesus Christ. Up until now, I tried to work with my weakness of fighting one-on-one, as I do better with an organized team. Today, however, I ventured into Mystery Duel and battled a very new player, losing by a wide margin. It was very demoralizing to be defeated by a brand new player, and to be certain, I saw they were not a smurf. Do I have a hard to fight singled out opponents? And if not, is there a way to work around poor aim, disregarding hero choice? At this stage, I must accept my aim will never improve. Now, don't be that way. Alright, don't be that way. So, the thing is, if it was a brand new player, like, this is something that I've learned quite recently, seeing as I've been trying to learn how to play a fighting game. Fighting against brand new players can be hard because they don't act in the way you expect them to do, right? Like, if you're used to a baseline level of competency, and then you suddenly switch to fighting somebody who is way weaker, or way lower skill, they're gonna do shit you don't expect them to do, and that's gonna catch you. So it's not necessarily surprising that a high-level player can lose a duel to a low-level player, just because the low-level player did something the high-level player wasn't expecting them to do, because it's not what they should have done, but they don't know that yet. The thing is, though, with, like, duels in particular, is that people typically just psych themselves out about it. That's when people are most concerned and panicked about what they're doing. Just, like, chill. It's like, you see this all the time when, like, so you see the Reaper or the Genji or whatever who's got, like, a guaranteed kill on somebody, but they psych themselves out and panic and just, like, spam all over the screen. Like, just chill. Just, like, take a breath and chill. You're probably psyching yourself out more than anything else. Especially if you think that that's an area in which you're weak, because then, when you go into that situation again, you're more anxious about it, because you're like, oh no, I'm terrible at doing this, oh god. Just, like, chill is, like, like, you know, I know that's easier said than done, obviously, but, like, that's probably the issue. What are the best maps for your favorite heroes? Well, I really like to play Reinhardt, Bridget, and Moira, and they all have one defining characteristic in which that they all like pretty relatively confined maps that don't have a lot of high ground on them, because they're bad at affecting fights on multiple levels. So best maps involves things like King's Row. They're all really good on King's Row. Bridget, can struggle a little bit on King's Row, just because of, like, if they're all long range, that can be an issue for Bridget. Hollywood, the first and third checkpoint. The second checkpoint, obviously, high ground control is important. Control center on Lijiang Tower, Sanctum on Nepal. You know, they're all relatively the same. Not super high ground and control important maps. I was going to say payload, but that makes up so many maps if you count hybrid as being, like, mostly payload. How to counter a good Zarya? Pick Reaper. Comp-wise, like, comps. The more spread out you are, typically the better. Like, dive comps are very hard for Zarya to get, like, a really good Graviton, because people just tend to be more spread out. The more close together you are, the more vulnerable you are to a Graviton, because you're just more likely to get your whole team sucked into it. Hero-wise, basically, like, Reaper is really good, because even if she's high charge, you can still kill her. Just because Reaper is really good at killing tanks. Who else is really good? Every time I think of one, I'm like, no, but she can kind of, like, swing that one back again. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. Basically, the only person I can think of who is really good against her right now is Reaper. Because I started thinking, like, Doomfist, but then I'm like, if she can keep track of you, though, she'll be fine. Zenyatta, just because Transcendence fucks up Graviton. That's all I can think of right now. I feel like I'm just, like, forgetting people, which is probably the case. Like 5 in the morning, don't judge me. Can I get out of silver by flexing? Yes, but it will be harder. We've answered this question like 3 times now. Pick some of the heroes already said. Don't flex into heroes that are really dependent on your teammates being good. Also. You don't need to demech D.Va to safely throw Grav. True. Zarya players really psych themselves out about this one, where they, like, won't throw the Graviton unless D.Va is out of her mech. You end up missing so many opportunities by being that way. You can just play around the D.Va's defense matrix. Tips for climbing out of bronze and silver. We already talked about this like 4 times now. What do I get? Don't play Mercy. Like, again, in silver as Mercy. Don't do that. Just, that's mistake. Don't do that. Reinhardt tips for full 100% spam comp. Just got destroyed on Eichenwald. So yeah, like, that's a situation where Reinhardt struggles. Basically, your shield is gonna break really quickly. So you kind of have to just... Having a Lucio helps, but you have to go from cover to cover quickly. Like, you need to know, alright, like, if you're on Eichenwald, like, specifically, you have to just, like, if they're, like, in the typical place, which is, like, back up the street towards the gate from under the bridge, then the best thing you can usually do is just, like, start from the left-hand side outside, put your shield up, very quickly walk around the bridge, get inside the store on the left-hand side, let shield recharge, then push up to, like, the overturned car, and then, like, push up again. Like, basically you have to go from cover to cover, because, I mean, you usually want to do that as Reinhardt anyway, but you just have to move really decisively against that kind of comp, because it lacks a lot of, like, forward pressure. They're just kind of, like, gonna sit back and throw shit at you. So the trick is, you've got to, like, play around cover and get to them. So, like, Eichenwald, go left, up to the car, and then up onto the objective. Like, you go from cover to cover to cover, and then, bam, you're on top of them. Once you get to that kind of team composition, it's not so much an issue. The issue is getting to the team composition. So basically, you look at the map and you go, all right, where are we gonna? We're gonna go here, then we're gonna go here, and then we're gonna go here, and then we're on them. Is basically the gist of it. if you're at like King's Row, you go up onto, if you're attacking, you go right side of the statue, wait behind the statue till you recharge, and then just like walk on to the point as quickly as possible, because then they'll either start falling back from the point, but they don't want you to capture the point, so they're gonna have to actually come forward. They're gonna have to like stay and fight, like the Orisa has to stay and fight you, and then you just rush up onto the Orisa as quickly as you possibly can, and like beat her, because the whole thing is like getting to them. So you just have to plot out how you're going to get there and then move decisively. Because what usually happens is the Reinhardt like doesn't let their shield recharge adequately, and they start pushing through it like 1,000 health and then just gone immediately. And they start having to back up basically as soon as they start pushing through the gate. Wait for your shield to recharge to a decent amount and then move decisively. Like, don't hesitate. Just be like, we're going now. Walk to the next point of cover. And then repeat until you get to the enemy team and then kill them. Question about custom 300 versus the play. What? I should keep my frame rate. Who cares? Anyone ever have insane win streaks? Yep. I think my best win streak was something like 27 games in a row. Happens. As D.Va, how do I use Defense Matrix better to eat ultimate's critical damage? I mean, what should I do to more easily predict Zarya grabs? That one's hard. Like, I don't play D.Va enough to know the exact intricacies of predicting that one. It seems when I try and stay on and watch for her voice line, the squishies aren't being killed. I'm focused on here to get some massive grab when I'm not watching her. Any off-tank tips would be appreciated. I mean, basically, if you think she's got it, basically be patient. Because she's going to be looking to use it as soon as possible. So if you think she's got it, you just got to kind of wait for it. But the answer is basically, like, if you think they've got their ultimates, you just have to pay really close attention to them and be patient and try to save your defense matrix to use for the ultimates or the critical damage. Patience is key. How do I rank up as a Widow? Get really good at shooting, is the easy answer. Underappreciated aspect of Widowmaker is how good she is at zoning, because Widow's entire line of sight is a very threatening space to be in, right? So, obviously a big part of playing Widow is like putting your cursor on the mans and clicking their heads. But her entire line of sight is like, I can't just stand in this space, because even if the Widow is bad, right, I can't just stand out in open space in front of her, because she can one-shot me. So, the other big aspect of playing Widowmaker is finding the most obnoxious line of sight possible, so that the enemy team have very limited places where they can stand, where they have to huddle more closely together. They have to play around cover more. They have to maybe go closer to your team to avoid being in your line of sight. They have to play further back than they would like to avoid your line of sight. Try to find the most obnoxious line of sight possible and then abuse it. Like Temple of Anubis, easiest example. Your team's attacking, they go up on the left-hand side. If you're on top of the arch and they're on the high ground, you being on top of the arch, assuming they don't just like get you off of it, the whole high ground area is basically unsafe. They have to push right up against the doorway to not just be in your line of sight or be hiding behind the pillars. So that forces them closer to your team, which makes it easier for your team to engage on them. And they have to like huddle into awkward locations to avoid your line of sight. This is assuming they can't just contest you on the high ground. That's assuming they can't do that for one reason or another. But that's the most straightforward example. It forces them closer to your team, makes it easier for your team to engage on them, and then you just do Widow things and you try to click on them, you know. The aiming aspect is obviously important, but she's really good at zoning because she does have an extremely threatening zone of threat. What a good sentence that one was. Her zone of threat is extremely dangerous, is a better way to phrase that. And it's very big, because it's her entire line of sight, because she's a sniper. So try and find really good lines of sight to annoy the fuck out of the enemy team. Playing what you're best at, but don't enjoy. Ultimately, this is a video game. Play what you enjoy playing. even if it's not what you're best at, like, it's a video game. If you're having a bad time playing the video game because you're playing people you don't enjoy, maybe just don't play the video game, right? Like, play who you want to play. It's a video game. Have fun. Is it worth it to wait for mech instead of simply resetting? You mean like throwing yourself off the map, basically? From my experience, trying to get your mech back with Diva Pistol simply isn't worth it. So, that's not true. Like, if the time to, like, throw yourself off the map or something to get your mech back faster is, like, when your team, like, both teams are resetting, right? And you can just, like, you can just go back into spawn, switch, or jump off a map or something like that, you know? If, like, a fight is, unless you're in an ongoing, even in a, simply not kill yourself to get back in that, like, the thing is that if you can get back in your mech relatively quickly, you've respawned faster, because you're not really a hero once you're out of your mech, right? You've died when you lose your mech. So if you can get your mech back in, like, 10 seconds, or, like, 7, somewhere in there, if you can get your mech back in, like, 7-10 seconds, then you've respawned really fucking fast. Because the time it takes you to respawn is not just your respawn timer, it's also however long it takes you to get back to the fight. So if it's, like, Numbani, right, like, you're attacking and the second checkpoint, you've got, like, a really long way to go back to get to the fight, right? Like, you take 10 seconds to respawn, but then it can take you another 10 seconds to get back to the fight. So if you get your mech back in, like, 10 seconds, you've respawned in half the time it would have taken you if you threw yourself off the map. So, like, if you can just get your mech back reasonably quickly, you have respawned a lot faster. But if both teams are resetting, there's nobody to shoot, there's nobody to get ult charge off of. Alright, at that point it's going to be faster to throw yourself off the map to get your mech back. Though not all maps even allow for something like that to happen. But yeah, that's the idea. You get to respawn a lot faster, which even if you're only in, like, the poking and prodding phase, right, that can be a big deal. And it's not like Diva does no damage when she's out of mech, right? If you just, like, spam into a tank, you can get your ult back in, like, 1 clip, right? Like, it's not that drastic, basically. How do I get out of platinum? That's a really vague question. It's kind of, I make a lot of mistakes, yes, but platinum is full of 4 insta-locking DPS. It's unplayable. It's not that drastic. It's not that bad. Our stupid monkey brains just, like, make those bad examples stick out more in our mind. Like, it's just play the game. Chill. Does meta matter in plat? Yes. That's where it starts mattering, because people have a degree of competency at that point. Even, like, midway up gold, meta starts to matter more. Once you're in plat, yeah, meta definitely matters at that point. Tips for differentiating things you could improve on versus things you cannot. I mean, you can improve anything. Our Ryan would change to the point unsupported when we were in 4 DPS. I feel like our tank was moving so far ahead was something that I, Moira, could not support, nor could our DPS, but at the same time, is there something I could do to make that a winning play? So, no. Basically, the best you can do, like, at that point, like, if the Reinhardt's doing that, he's making a bad play. So all you can do is do something that has the highest percentage chance of making that play work. Which, as Moira, like, this is not good advice. Don't do this just as a general practice. But for, like, that specific example, where the Reinhardt's charging in way ahead, right? If you throw the healing orb and fade after him, and then hold down left click on top of him, you'll start healing him a lot. So you might make him survive through doing the stupid thing, right? That's not a good play, but the Reinhardt is also making a bad play. So all you can do in that position is try and do the thing that makes the play most likely to succeed, right? If the Reinhardt is continually doing that, you should change to a healer that can support from further away, which would be like Anna. Anna can watch the Reinhardt charge way in, and she can heal him from 1,000 miles away, and it doesn't affect her, right? Because she's completely safe. So if the Reinhardt's just doing that over and over and over again, yeah, Moira can't do much. She's a pretty short-range healer, right? Anna's a very long-range healer. So you can just change to Anna and be like, oh, there he goes again. Just like throw the grenade in and like heal him from far away. And will he still probably die? Yes, he's still making a mistake. But you changing to Anna to support him from further away when he's doing this dumb shit makes it more likely to work because you can actually support him from that far away. Like, there's always something you can do to make it more likely you'll win, but, like, no one can throw a game as thoroughly and as quickly as a Reinhardt player can. So, all you can do is do your best, but sometimes your best will not be enough. That's just how life is, tragically. Sometimes your best won't be enough. Any tips on curating your new account for those? What the fuck does that mean? Say, do not do placements right, and I probably won't get to them this season, but is there anything that I should be doing specifically? Just, don't worry about it that much. Jesus Christ. Been picking up recently. I was getting pretty good at looping to get to the enemy backline. Okay. Played a few games the other night where I tried to actively play more frontline and protecting my backline. Does anyone have any general advice on how to spend my time in terms of flanking versus fighting on the front line versus protecting my backline? Should I be continuing to focus on improving my backline harassment game? So here's the thing. The most important aspect of Sombra is farming up your ultimate as quickly as possible. So you typically do that by playing more aggressively. Sombra is not exactly great at protecting her own team. You can do it. Like, you can really fuck up a Pharah's day, you can really fuck up a Genji's and a Tracer's day, right? So, like, yeah, there's something to that. But the thing that's really strong about, like, the thing you're doing spending most of your time doing as Sombra is farming up to get EMP and then using that to win the fight, because it's still, like, one of the strongest ultimates in the game, debatably the strongest. The only thing is it requires other people around. But, like, just taking 6 heroes out of the game for a while is really strong. So, if you're playing more conservatively, you're probably spending less time farming your ultimate, which is, like, the ultimate goal of Sombra, really. So, try to spend more time playing aggressively so you can farm up your ult quicker. Because I still think Sombra's best playstyle is aggressively. Like, some people basically at this point play her like she's Soldier because they buffed her spread, if you know what I mean, to that kind of level. And they just sort of play her with her team more, but, like, to me that's only not really playing Sombra. Like, at that point, why aren't you just playing Soldier, really, right? Like, Sombra's an aggressive hero. Be aggressive. Go out there and farm that ult and try to kill people. So now, we're just under an hour. So, great job. Great job. Taking like 20 minutes per page. Easy peasy. So, thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them. Or, just shitpost with us. And hope you found the video helpful.